So we were winding up today, and I had to go to the dumpster of the station we were at, and I was unloading all my stuff, all my junk from today into the dumpster, and these two guys pulls up to me. They pull up to me, and one of them's pointing at me, and he said, "I want you to come over here." And man, he was high as a kite, and I could tell he was, but I said, "All right." So I walked over there, and he said, "I ain't never seen you before." And I said, Yeah, I know. I'm not from here." And he goes, "Yeah, I know." And he said, "Look at my toolbox." I thought he was trying to sell me a toolbox, and he said, "Look at my toolbox." And this guy mounted a huge Craftsman toolbox in the back of his Dodge Durango. It was an older Durango, and man, I don't know how he got that thing in there, but it was from ceiling to floor. And he said, "Look at my toolbox." And I said, "Man, that is awesome. I don't know how you did that." He said, "Man, I worked at it. I welded it and stuck it in there." And he said, "But man, your truck." I said, "You like this truck?" He said, "Man, what I could do with that truck." I said, "Man, this company's got 23 of them." And the guys that was with him and both him, they were just sitting there wide-eyed like, "No blankety blank way. No way." I said, "Yeah." Then they got a few more trucks. I said, "We do quite a bit." He goes, "Yeah, I know what you do." I said, "You do?" He goes, "Yeah, because I saw you across the parking lot. I've seen you before. But I really told you that I hadn't seen you before, but I have." I said, well, that's all right. I said, he said, "Yeah, because I saw you when we couldn't get out of the house. Do you remember that?" I know he's talking about COVID. I said, "Yeah, I do remember that, because it was really bad up here. They couldn't go anywhere." He said, "Yeah, we couldn't go nowhere but the garage, man." And I looked out. I just live around the corner over here, and I looked out in the garage, and there was this rectangle of light out in the street, because, man, things were so dark around here. And he said, "I saw you in that light." And I said, "You saw me in the light?" He said, "Yeah, you were in the light. And I saw you again today." And there for a minute I thought, man, it's not the same guy, but it was. You were in that light that I saw. He said, "You're different than anybody I've ever talked to. You're not like anybody I've ever seen here in this state, man." And that's the second time I've heard that. Really weird. The second time. Let me tell you, man, I'm I'm wearing these old clothes, these old dirty clothes, and I'd just taken off my work shirt that I work, my yellow one that I work underneath the pits on, and he said, "You're different than anybody I've ever seen." I said, "Well, man, I guess I appreciate that." He said, No, you have the light in you. You have that light in you, and I just wanted you to know that I saw it again." And man, I was just sitting there like, what in the world? And I said, "Well, I talked to him there for a little bit." He grabbed my hand. He said, "You need to hug everybody that you come to." And I could tell he was drugged out pretty bad, but he was making some sense to himself, And I said, "Okay, I'll try to do that." He said, "No, really." He grabbed my hand. He goes, "You hug everybody, because when you do, you give them something." I said, "Okay." So I said, "Would you guys like a couple of hats? Because we like to give out hats." And they go, "Oh, we get some free hats." And so I gave him a couple of cat hats, looked like this, but with a bill on it. And he just grabbed a hold of me again and said, he said, "I'm so glad I met you. Here's my card. You call me anytime you want to." Now look, some of you are probably saying, he was just high and he was acting like a crazy person. Well, that's the second time that's happened to me, and they said the same thing over again. And I like to think that, you know what? We kind of we know what's on the inside of us, And we kind of need to shed that light. We kind of need to share it. So I got back in the truck and I was telling Gina this story, and she said, you know, we got to remember that, man, people, they can see that light in us. He's probably seeing, you know, his spiritual eyes, whether good or bad, you know. He's seeing with his spiritual eyes, and he sees us, and we have the light around us, and those are the people that they're looking for. And we got to remember that, who we are. No matter how dirty we are, what we're doing, what our job is, the biggest witness we are is out there in the field. And you may not even know it, what people think about you. You know, they may see you across the parking lot and know you're different. And just remember that even though somebody might not say a word, they know you're different. They know we're all different in that manner, and they can see the goodness in us. You don't have to say a word.